Good afternoon and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. This is episode 8 of the Combat Sports Podcast. So today we're going to talk about, it's a very busy weekend in the world of boxing and MMA and even bare knuckle fighting championship this weekend. So we're going to run through the cards that we have coming up over the next 3 days. And then we got the official announcement of the Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn date, venue, undercard. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Another big fight announcement, Jaron Ennis, Eimantas Stanionis. I'll talk about that. And then, then we'll just run through some other big news that have been going on in the last few days in the world of combat sports. So let's start off with some of the cards that are coming up this weekend. So in terms of the major cards, like the major promotions, there's a total of 7. And I'm really excited for this weekend because there's some really good fights. All the cards are pretty good, and they're not going to overlap with each other too much. So Thursday night, we have the Golden Boy Fight Night with Eric Priest headlining for his first time. He's in with Tyler Howard, I believe his name is. Pretty good card there. You got to love these. I love the Golden Boy Thursday night fight nights that we get. They're usually get a lot of good fighters on them, hopefully some good knockouts tonight. I think it's a really good way because Golden Boy doesn't put on an overwhelming amount of shows. At least they don't put on a lot of, big shows. So I really like when they get to do these smaller shows to kind of, serve their younger prospect fighters. So tonight's card, Eric Priest is headlining for the first time. I believe it's in a 10-rounder. You've got Jordan Pantheon. I'm not sure what his name is again, but he's coming back. I think he's been out of the ring for quite a while. The younger brother of the Flores brothers, I think it's Grant, is also going to be fighting tonight. Caden Griffiths, who's I think he's had 2 fights, both I think really good performances. I think they were both stoppages. And just some other really good fighters on the card tonight. Jordan Fuentes is another one. I think there's a total of 6 fights. I don't know if they'll all get broadcast, but I like them doing these Thursday night fights like once a month or so. Small arenas, but they usually do it at the Fantasy Springs, and I think that's actually a really cool casino arena. This one's at the Commerce Casino, which is another good one. They had a fight literally just last week with the Omar Trinidad card, but 6 days later they're back. And they also, a good thing about these cards is they're free on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed to DAZN or anything else like that, it's a great way to get some good boxing in. Usually pretty much one-sided fights. Like I said, they're all prospects pretty much, so they all, get in with opponents that they're capable of beating. But, so there should be some good fights tonight. Hopefully there's going to be lots of knockouts. As I know that everybody else loves. So that's the first card. That's Thursday. Friday is honestly probably the biggest event of the weekend for sure. Naoya Inoue versus Joon Kim. Now, to be honest, I don't even know how much I want to talk about this fight. I'm really excited for it just because whenever Inoue gets to fight, it's just such an event. Early morning. Usually it's on Tuesdays. This time it'll be on a Friday. Here in America, fights very early mornings. Card starts at 4:15 a.m. Eastern. It's very early. It's on ESPN Plus. I'm not sure how many fights will be on the broadcast. It's usually just 2 with Inoue as of recent. I know the co-main is Jin Sasaki, who's a welterweight contender. He's going to be closing in on a title shot in the next probably in the next year or so. I could see him getting one. I believe he's highly ranked with the IBF, so could get one there. Crocker and Donovan, of course, have they are fighting in an eliminator in March 1st, and so likely they'll be ordered to face the winner of Ennis Stanionis, which we'll talk about pretty soon. But I've heard a lot of good things about Jin Sasaki. Excited to see him fight. I believe he's got something like 18, 19 wins, and only one of those are decision. So should be a short night. I think that they may have one other card on the broadcast, but I'm not sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's just Inoue's fight and Jin Sasaki's fight. But Inoue is defending his title against Joon Kim, which, it's already been talked about a lot. Sam Goodman pulled out for the second time. They needed an opponent. This was the replacement opponent they already had set up. I don't know why this is him. There's so many other better names that they could have brought in. I mean, yeah, it was short notice, but he still had about 2 weeks to find an opponent. That's around the same time frame that David Nika came in to fight Jairo Pitaya, and he got knocked out in the 4th round, but came in, caused Pitaya some problems, and made that event way bigger. It was going to be way bigger than it was way bigger than the Sin Cara fight was ever going to be. So they definitely could have found a better replacement, I think. But I don't know. I'm glad that Inoue is keeping the date, though. We know he's supposed to fight in April in Las Vegas. He could have just said, screw it, I'll be back then. And then just canceled this whole camp, canceled this whole day, whatever. So really happy we get to see Inoue. He's a pound-for-pound, generational great. And, the good thing about him having an easy opponent is that we know we're probably going to get a monster knockout. So I'm still excited nonetheless. Still going to be fun to wake up. And like I said, just every time he fights, there's just such a big event feel for it. Even when he fought TJ Doheny, which I think is another undeserving challenger, it was still an exciting fight just because it's man, we get to see Inoue, But, so that's tomorrow morning early. Friday night is the Pro Box TV card. Najee Lopez fights headlines for I believe what is his first time. Should be a good card there. They've got Jeremiah Milton, who's their new heavyweight prospect. He's in the co-main event. I think they're going to have a total of, from what they posted, I believe they'll have a total of 7 fights on the broadcast. Main card starts at 6 p.m. So we're seeing a change in Pro Box, I think. They're just their production, the amount of fights they're doing, the kind of fights they're doing, the fighters they're getting on their cards, it's just all being ticked up a notch. It's all just everything looks better. I mean, Najee Lopez is headlining against Gilbert Castillo, which is Najee Lopez is definitely a very good fighter, but it's not this is a huge card for them. It's not, but they're still putting a lot of good fighters on this card. Najee Lopez, Jeremiah Milton, Darrell Valsaint. Ariel Perez, I remember seeing him sometimes. He's a good prospect. Jordan Roach, who I believe is the younger brother of WBA super featherweight champion Lamont Roach, who's in with Tank Davis pretty soon. Yojanler Martinez. Some good names here, some good prospects. I'm excited definitely for the Lopez and Milton fights. So should be a good night. But I like that Pro Box is expanding. They're not only are they putting on more shows, they're putting on bigger shows. They're leaving their own arena. This one I think is at the Pro Box Center, but they're doing more events outside of that. I think they have an event. Their February 8th one is on San Antonio. That's on a Saturday night, and those are some good fights on there. Genuine some good contender fights. So they're stepping up the levels. They're bringing in other promotions. They've got Conlon Boxing they're working with now. They worked with Lou DiBella on a card in October, so they're really stepping it up. And I mean, they also just announced earlier this week, Conlon announced their first show for 2025. That is the Khalil Majid card. That's going to be on February 21st. And then Pro Box has another card February 19th, which is another Wednesday night fight, I know, but I don't even think it's at the Pro Box Center. So they're going to have 3 cards in February, 2 of which are going to be in the same week. So we'll have 2 Pro Box TV broadcasts on February 19th and 21st. I love it. They're really stepping it up. They're trying to even leave behind the Wednesday night fights, which I didn't mind, having a fights on Wednesday instead of all the other ones, but it kind of solidifies. They're getting more confident in their product, just their promotion I'm seeing. They're really, stepping it up a notch, finding themselves into real contender positions with their fighters. They've got world champions like Angelo Leo, they're getting towards positions to be a top promoter. So it's really cool to see. I'm a big fan of them. So I think they're going to have a huge 2025, and it all starts tomorrow night, 6 p.m. on Pro Box TV and YouTube. Again, it's all free on YouTube, which is another really cool thing. Probably won't be for a while. Soon enough, I think that they said their plan is for it to move exclusively to Pro Box TV and for that to become a subscription, but not a very expensive one, $3 to $5 a month, which is nothing. So hopefully they expand this year. Saturday, we have 4 cards, but what's good is that it's not they're all on at the same time. You've got 2 in daytime here in the States, and then 2 at night in the States. So the 2 during the day will have the first PFL event of 2025 and whatever the new Bellator kind of looks like, which is the Road to Dubai Champion Series, which we'll talk a little bit about what that means. I'm not sure if that means, this is, because it's in Dubai. The fight is in the Coca-Cola Arena in Dubai. I don't know if that means, it's Dubai, so we're going to call it Road to Dubai. I think that it's going to be, that's what Bellator is now called. It's no longer the Bellator Champion Series. It's the PFL Road to Dubai Champion Series, where they have these events all over, but they're all going to be called Road to Dubai. And that I don't really like. I think it's kind of like their way of doing a Riyadh season in a way, even though PFL has worked with Riyadh season. I don't know if they don't anymore. They had the PFL versus Bellator card, which was under the Riyadh season banner. Then, the Ngannou card and the World Championships, those were not with Riyadh season. There was no connection there. So I don't know what the story is there, but this card is going to be in Dubai. I think that the plan is for them all to be Road to Dubai. Hopefully we'll get another one announced soon. They're still going to use the Bellator Championship, it seems. This one is going to be Usman Nurmagomedov versus Paul Hughes. That's a really good fight, honestly. And I was kind of surprised that they made the fight with Paul Hughes, just because he's this, big, rising star, big for MMA, big for Irish, European MMA. He called out Usman Nurmagomedov, I remember. And I was like, that's a good fight. That's a good matchup. But I didn't think that they were actually going to make the fight. And they did. And I think it's a really cool matchup. I think Usman's definitely going to win. But it's cool that they're getting Hughes a big opportunity to main event. That's a fun matchup. The promotion has been fun. Dagestan versus Ireland too, which also I'm a little bit confused about because that was a UFC. That was McGregor and Khabib. That wasn't Bellator. So it's kind of weird that they can. I don't know if they're allowed to necessarily be doing that promotion. I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC tries to sue them. Then again, I don't think the UFC cares that much, so we'll see. But Vladimir Nemkov is on the undercard. Ryan Kelly is on the undercard. There's some other good notable names that are going to be fighting. I think it's a total of 11 or 12 total fights. Coverage starts at, I believe, 11 a.m. Eastern on Max. So they're still keeping the Max deal with Bellator, but Bellator as a promotion is officially dead. The brand seems to have some resonance, like the Champion Series has been changed, but they're keeping the Bellator title. This is the Bellator Lightweight Championship of the world, so we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for that. I think it should be a fun card in Dubai during the day. Starts pretty early, so excited for that. The other card we're getting during the day, Dalton Smith versus Waleed Ouiza. This should be good. I think that this is Dalton's last fight where he's going to be like a huge favorite in for a bit. I could be wrong, but I see him winning this fight. He'll then be the WBC Silver and EBU European champion. I think that he could potentially get a shot at the WBC championship. I think he's number 2 with them. He's their silver champion. Number 1, Sandor Martin is fighting the champion, Alberto Puello, on the Tank Roach undercard. I would like to see the winner of that fight unify with the winner of the Valenzuela-Russell fight. Since those are on the same card, both 140, both all under PBC, or at least Puello and Valenzuela and Russell are. Martin is with Top Rank. At least I believe so. I'm pretty sure they signed him last year. So we'll see, but hopefully they can do that on like a Riyadh season card maybe. I wouldn't mind seeing Dalton Smith get his world title shot at the end of 2025. However, the other big option for Dalton Smith after this is obviously Adam Azim, their big domestic rivals. We'll talk about that in a little bit because I think that could be happening sooner rather than later. Regardless, big fight for him, challenging for the vacant European Championship. He should get it. That's in Nottingham. Should be a good fight. On that card, you've got Ellie Scotney versus Miyamoto. That should be a brilliant fight. Unified Championship, I think it's IBF, WBO, IBO, and Ring Magazine all on the line. So the winner of that fight is in a very good position to move for undisputed honors. And I believe that the other champions in that division, have a pretty good relationship with Matchroom. So, if Scotty can get through it, she can really move to undisputed. And I think that they should. When you've got 2 of the main belts and then also the Ring Magazine and IBO, I mean, why just defend against mandatories? Try and take over the division. But Miyamoto is a fantastic fighter, fantastic opponent for. I remember I watched her on the Janibek-Mikhailovic card in October. I was very impressed. So I think that's going to be a war. I think it's a really good fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight. So real pumped for that one. Also on that card is Harry Scarf, Conor Walker. Again, that's a brilliant British title fight. I'm a huge fan of Conor Walker, just the way he turned his career around, in the last year or so. He beats Cyrus Pattinson, gets a good fight in Belfast against another undefeated opponent, wins that. Then he moves into the Lewis Crocker fight, which I think was a robbery. It wasn't a terrible robbery, but I definitely thought that Walker got the best of him. And I feel like there wasn't enough justice for that. I know people say, oh, it was a great fight, close fight. But I feel like not enough people said, Walker won that. I feel like a lot of the system was yeah, Walker probably won that, but it's okay. I was like, man, that sucks, And then he gets the fight against Lewis Ritson in November, which he absolutely dominated. So this is a really good fight. I love that they got him a British title shot. Harry Scarf is a good opponent. Almost got a world title shot when he fought Chukagian, but lost that one. I think he beat Ekau Esaman, if I'm right. So, this should be a really good matchup. I'm excited for the winner of this. Could get some other good domestic fights and potentially even move towards a world championship. I don't think they're going to get a title shot, but they can start getting into fights with other top contenders, start moving towards that. But that'll be a good card. Ibrahim Suleiman, Hamza Udin on the card as well. So some good matchroom prospects that are exciting to watch. I'm a really big fan of Suleiman. I think that he's just really fun to watch. He's got a weird look to him, and he's definitely a fun character. But he's good. He moves up to 8 rounds, I believe, this weekend. It's also going to be good to see Matchroom's new style for their UK shows, because I believe they're only doing 4 fights on the broadcast. And Eddie Hearn said that the plan is for everyone to be home and done, or at least the plan is to be done with the event by 10 p.m. UK time. So we'll see. Their doubleheader that they're doing, moving into their next card. By the way, this card starts at before the bell is at 12:15 on the East Coast. That's 5:15 local, and that'll be on YouTube as well as DAZN. And then the main card at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT. That's on DAZN. Matchroom has another card that day, which, again, I love this as well, because they're really the only promotion that's truly international. UK, US, Mexico, Australia, Puerto Rico, just everywhere. But they've got a card, Diego Pacheco, Steven Nelson. Before the bell on that will go live 5:45 Eastern, 2:45 Pacific, where it is. And then main card, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Diego Pacheco really is close to a world title shot. I believe he's the WBO #1 challenger. Should he get past Steven Nelson, I can see him clutching onto it. I can see him, really making a case to get the Canelo fight. I think Canelo's got a few more opponents before him, and I think that they know that you don't want to push him into the fight too early, but you want to give him that world title shot. I think he's ready for the world title. I just don't think that he's ready for Canelo. So, get him a good fight, get him into an eliminator maybe. Steven Nelson's a really good opponent, undefeated, stablemates with Bud Crawford. Should make for a good fight. I do expect Pacheco to win that, but a good matchmaking for him. Hopefully he fights 2 more times this year, world title shot beginning in 2026. I wouldn't be mad at it. Also on that card, you got Andy Cruz against Omar Salcido, the same Salcido that just stopped Chris Colbert on Pro Box in October. That's a really good fight. Andy Cruz is another fighter that's closing in on a world title shot. He's only 4-0, I think. This will be his 5th fight. I'd like to see him more active this year. For the past 2 years, he's only had 2 fights, and that's just too long, I feel. I know that he fights in 10-rounders, and a lot of them go the distance, but I'd like to see him fight more often. He keeps on calling out Keyshawn Davis. That's a brilliant fight. Should Keyshawn win this fight against Baranchuk he has on Valentine's Day, I'd like to see Keyshawn and Andy Cruz. I'd also know that Andy Cruz could be looking at becoming Tank's mandatory. Although I don't know if they'll really call any mandatory for Tank. The WBA will, but I think that he really could get there. I think he's 5 right now, and just looking at the way that the division's going to move around, he really could get a world title mandatory shot by the end of the year. And he's good enough to get that world title shot. So, excited to see him back out. They got a good opponent. Ernesto Mercado is in with Jose Pedraza. Again, another great matchmaking. Pedraza's very good. He's become a very good gatekeeper. I think that him against Mercado is a really good fight. One thing about Mercado, which I don't really get, is that he's 140, but he keeps on calling out 135-pounders. Like today at the press conference I saw he was calling out Shakur and Keyshawn. And I feel like I've seen him say that a lot. Like he really wants Shakur. And, he's a devastating puncher, and maybe that's why is that, he thinks that his style would overdo Shakur's, kind of more tactical, methodical boxing style. But it just seems weird for me for him to call out, guys that aren't actually in this weight class. I know that a lot of the 135, 140 guys, they all, we try and get them to match them up, and we do that all across the sport. And Shakur and Keyshawn likely will move up by the time that Tito Mercado looks for a title shot, but I don't know. It just seems kind of weird for him to, not mention the champions of his own division. Regardless, he's very good. He makes his matchroom debut. Jose Pedraza is a great opponent. I bet Tito will stop him, really make a statement. So those three fights are brilliant. You've also got, Nishant Dev, who's their new Olympian from India. He's making his pro debut on the card. You've got Zakeen Moses, the cousin of Shakur Stevenson, having his second fight. Two new matchroom signees, guys like Leonardo Rubalcava's on the card, Harley Madero. So some good fighters. Should be a really fun night. I think there's 14 total fights across those cards for matchroom. So I honestly hope that they do this more often. I know that February 28th they have a card in Mexico with Rocky Hernandez versus Rene Tejas Giron. And then Saturday, March 1st, they have a card with Lewis Crocker versus Patty Donovan. So that's another, fight. It's not America and England, but it's Mexico and Ireland. So, still same time zones across the different sides of the Atlantic Ocean. But, yeah, I think that they have the potential to, keep doing shows like this, keep doing previously unseen events like this, like across different months or different countries in the same day or same weekend. Eddie Hearn can be at one, Frank Smith can be at the other. They want to do more shows this year. They're doing a show almost every weekend. Double up on it. I love to see that. I think it's a really, really cool concept. Also on Saturday night, also on DAZN, is Knucklemania 5, Eddie Alvarez, Jeremy Stephens. This is a really good fight, I think. I think it's really fun. The thing with BKFC is that they are building their own stars. They do have a big fan base. They do have their own champion system. But the stuff that's going to attract most of the mainstream MMA boxing audience is when you get to see the stars from outside BKFC fight. And I know Alvarez and Stephens, they've both been in BKFC for a bit. They've had a couple fights, but, they're the big names, still bigger names than any of the BKFC fighters. And this is a really good matchup, in MMA or BKFC. But Eddie Alvarez headlines in his home city of Philadelphia. Also, Dave Feldman and the whole BKFC crew, they're all from Philly, so, makes it a big homecoming for them. It's going to be their biggest audience. I think they said it's like the biggest gate in the Wells Fargo Center history. No, biggest attendance. I was like, there's no way it's the biggest gate. I think it's the biggest attendance they're going to do. So really cool to see what that looks like. We rarely get to see BKFC in like genuine arenas, big like basketball 20,000 seat arenas. So excited to see what this looks like. It's going to be a really fun night. You've got Mick Terrell versus Ben Rothwell for the heavyweight championship. That's an amazing fight. That's a really good heavyweight championship. They both fought on Knucklemania 4 in LA last April, and he seemed pretty honest that they, that's how they're supposed to, that's what's next. Speaking of Knucklemania, I just saw that Conor McGregor did entered the press conference late and says, "Sorry I'm late, I don't give a fuck," as he is famous for doing a while ago. Hopefully McGregor fights on BKFC one day. That'd be awesome. It's funny that he's here, promoting Eddie Alvarez and Jeremy Stephens, where it was at that press conference for the Eddie Alvarez fight that Jeremy Stephens was the guy he was the who the fuck is that guy. That's Jeremy Stephens, and now McGregor is promoting his fight against the guy that he fought that week. So That's kind of interesting. Um, just kind of a funny thing. But yeah, they've got a really good card. It's a total of, I believe, how many? Let me count really quick. 13 fights. So that's nuts. They got Taylor Starling versus Beck Rawlings. I believe that'll be like a title eliminator. Bryce Hall, Kimbo Slice Jr. is meant to be on the card. That would have been awesome. No longer, but they've got a lot of BKFC regulars. Prelims are at 8 p.m. Eastern, with, I believe, those will be on YouTube and DAZN. Main card at 9 p.m. Eastern on DAZN. The best thing to me about BKFC is how fast they run. Like, their pacing is unbelievable because they're all short fights, but they just move along so well where that main card is 10 fights starting at 9 p.m. It'll be over, honestly, maybe by midnight. Like, genuinely. Maybe 12:30 if you're stretching it realistically. But regardless, they're so fast at doing it, getting through the cards. So, excited for that. It's going to be a huge weekend for combat sports. In terms of my predictions for a lot of it, Inoue is going to win by knockout, I bet, in the first half. Actually, no. Before round 9, I'll say. Before round 9, Inoue gets a stoppage. Some other good big fights. Usman Nurmagomedov is going to win. I can see him winning by submission. Dalton Smith will win by another good knockout, I think. I really want Kona Walker to beat Harry Scarf, but I don't know if he will. I'm going to pick Kona Walker just in hopes that he does win. I bet Scottney will just barely beat Motu by decision. Diego Pacheco, I think, is going to find a way to stop Steven Nelson. I think that Andy Cruz will beat Omar Salcido, but I think it'll be by decision. I think it'll be somewhat competitive. I think Tito Mercado will stop Jose Pedraza. I think that it's hard to say with Alvarez and Stevens because the whole thing has been like Stevens versus Philadelphia. He's talking shit to the whole city. But I don't know. I feel like he's been in BKFC longer. He's had more fights. I feel like it's more suited for him. And you have this he's spoiling the homecoming. So I may pick Jeremy Stevens in that one. It's either going to be Jeremy Stevens with a big surprise, it's either going to be Eddie Alvarez by knockout or Jeremy Stevens by decision, and just breaking him down, showing over time, over the whole fight, yeah, I'm that guy. Or it's going to be Eddie Alvarez doing what Philly wants him to do. Then you've got Mick Terrell and Ben Rothwell. I bet Mick will probably still win by knockout. So those are just some of my predictions for this weekend. Again, should be a great great weekend of fights. I'm going to try and do live updates for as most of them as I can. I don't know if I'll be able to do it for the Golden Boy or the Pro Box card, but definitely for the Inoue card, and hopefully be live tweeting during all the cards on Saturday. So, yeah, should be a good weekend. Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, is official for April 26th at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. I think it's 65,000 seats. Excited that they got this over the line for that date. That's what we were hearing. We were hearing it was going to be April 26th. We were hearing it was going to be at Tottenham Hotspur, but just could have it announced. I'm just so excited for this fight. I think the build is going to be great. It's a great British fight. I know it'll be on DAZN. I'm guessing it'll also be on Sky Sports and maybe TNT Sports. It'll be really interesting to see what happens to TNT Sports after Queensberry leaves, because that'll also be Queensberry will be leaving after March, so that'll be after Queensberry's no longer with them. We'll actually talk about Queensberry and their presence on this card. But this is the first Ring Magazine card. In fact, I think that the second one will be the week later, the Ryan Garcia Devin Haney card. But yeah, it is I think that this is honestly, and I haven't looked into what people are saying about the card, but I think this is a very reasonable card. It's not to the level of the Riyadh season cards, a lot of them, but it is a good, it's all domestic fights for the most part. It's all, good competitive fights. So let's just run through it. So as of right now, it looks like the co-main event is Anthony Yarde versus Lyndon Arthur 3. This is really cool that they're doing this. See, personally, I would have rather seen Buatsi versus Yarde and Arthur versus Aziz. I think those are more closely competitive fights. But I'm just happy to see, Yarde back in with a big name. Because since he lost to Artur Beterbiev, he fought Jorge Silva, who's straight-up journeyman, fought Marco Nikolic, who, another easy win. And then he fought Rouse Vilcons, who's not a big name, but I mean I thought that was actually a pretty competitive fight, and he took him the distance, which the only other man to actually take him the distance was actually, well, it may have been early. Yeah, it was his second fight against a 3-10 guy. So, but still, Yard is only out of his 26 wins, 2 of them are decisions, and one of them was Vilcons, another one was a journeyman. All like the bigger names he's fought, he's defeated. Lyndon Arthur did beat him by split decision in 2020 when they fought for the Commonwealth Championship. Rematched a little bit later and knocked him out in the 4th round. So, they're 1-1 in their trilogy. I feel like it's been a couple years now, so it's weird that we're getting it now. But I'm not mad. I think I'm just glad the Yard is in another big domestic fight. Hopefully, the winner of this one can get in with another big domestic name again. I think you have to favor Yard here. I think that when Arthur beat him, it was a big upset. But who knows? Lyndon Arthur's only losses come to Anthony Yard and Dimitri Bivol. And Lyndon Arthur also had a very competitive fight with Liam Cameron last time in June of 2024. Before that was the Bivol loss, but former IBO champion, which doesn't mean a lot, but I think it's a good fight regardless. Excited for that. Also on the card, Liam Smith versus Aaron McKenna. This is a really interesting fight. Liam Smith was just re-signed with Matchroom. That was announced the other day. And we knew this fight was rumored. Arthur and Yard was a complete surprise. That wasn't rumored at all, but this one was rumored. So I'm really just kind of confused about this one. We know Liam Smith is on the back end of his career. Probably only has a few fights left. He's not going to be a world champion again, I don't think. But I was expecting him to fight somebody, not as fresh as McKenna, I'd say. Aaron McKenna is 19-0 now. He's probably pretty highly ranked. He fights at he's in the 160 division, so middleweight. So that's not a very deep division. He can definitely get like a good domestic fight and work towards a world championship. But I don't know. This just seems like such like a weird fight. It's so random. It's such a random matchup, and I don't hate it. I think it could be. I think it actually, when you think about it, is a pretty close fight. Liam Smith is on the back end of his career. He's coming into a young and dangerous fighter, but McKenna is he's so young. He's never been in with anybody the likes of Liam Smith. So it's gonna be a really interesting matchup. I just don't really get it. I feel like there's so many other names for both of them that I'm not sure how they came to this match. I'm not sure who McKenna is signed with. He had his last. I feel like he had a last couple fights with Boxer. Then he fought on the Prize Fighter, Matchroom's Prize Fighter. Before that, all went up in flames and didn't continue. But I think this is a good matchup just in the fact that it's close. It's competitive. We don't know who's gonna win, but we'll see. Also on the card, Chris Smith makes his return after losing to Zurdo Ramirez. He's in with Brandon Glanton, who's 20-2. So that'll be a decent fight. I think that's a pretty good comeback fight. I thought for a second they were going to go straight back into like the challenging for the WBC title, but I think that's kind of booked up right now. We know Bedu Jack is going to fight Ryan Rozicki. I think there's going to be an interim title somewhere somebody's going to fight for. So there may be a while before we see that, but I like this more of him not going straight into a world championship. This would be a good way for him to get back onto the scene. I know there's potential for him to retire. I'm glad that he's not. I think he still has a lot to give the sport, only 2 defeats. I like this fight. He wins this one, get him right back into another big fight, maybe a domestic one. I'm not sure who it would be against, but it'll be a big fight. He was a very good champion, so I think that he could definitely end up back contending for another world title in the next 18 months or so. And then the last fight that's on the card, oh man, I'm so happy about this. Vidal Riley versus Chev Clark. This is a brilliant domestic cruiserweight championship. All of these guys were kind of circling each other, right? Where it was Isaac Chamberlain was the British champion. Chev Clark was mandatory. Boxer wanted to make the Vidal Riley and Isaac Chamberlain fight. Then, but Chev Clark was the mandatory. He was in the way. Chamberlain decides he doesn't want to defend against Clark. Clark fights for it. Clark becomes the British champion. In fact, I think Clark may still be the British champion. He fought for the European and lost it, and lost that fight in an upset. But it wasn't a terrible loss. So he can still come back. And I think that him and Vidal is a very good fight. Vidal was meant to finally fight Chamberlain. I was so excited. It was going to be February 1st as the co-main to Azim and Lipinets. Chamberlain gets injured. He's out. And Vidal gets a much bigger opportunity in a much better fight, I think. I think both Vidal and Shev would have beaten. They both would have beaten Isaac Chamberlain. This fight is like 50-50. I do not know who's going to win this fight. Yeah, Shev Clark did lose, but he's also a very dangerous fighter. Vidal is very good, high hopes for him. I'm a fan of Vidal, but I'm also a really big fan of C4 Shev, so I don't know. Right now, you'd have to favor Vidal, I think, just because he's looked better as of recent. Even Shev Clark's fight before his last against Mosquea, against Apache, he still didn't look great in that. We'll see. They're both pretty early in their career, 12-0 versus 10-1. Shev had 4 fights last year. Vidal only had 2, and one of those was, heavyweight against a journeyman. So we'll see. But this is a really, really good matchup. Honestly, maybe the best fight on the card. Actually, I don't even know if that's true. Eubank-Benn is definitely the most, biggest fight. And then Yard and Arthur is a very good fight as well. But this is probably the second best fight outside of the main event. I'm really excited for this one. Really excited to see who will win it. But I'm assuming that card's probably going to get hate because it's all British fighters and, it's not like there's any world championships on it and it's, whatever. It's only 5 fights. I'm sure they'll add more. But, these are Ring Magazine cards. They're not Riyadh season. I know they'll still have a huge budget. But I'm not sure how different that'll be. But I think this is a really good card. It's a very good pay-per-view card. One thing that's interesting to note about it is that on BoxRec, Queensberry is listed as one of the promoters. Frank Warren is. However, if you look at the fighters on this card, Eubank is with Boxer. Benn is with Matchroom. Yard was with Queensberry, but now it seems he could be with Boxer, or he's kind of a free agent. We're not really sure. Arthur is still with Wasserman, I believe. Liam Smith just re-signed with Matchroom. McKenna, I'm not sure where he stands. Maybe he's with Boxer, maybe he's with Matchroom, but I think he may be a free agent. CBS is with Boxer. Brandon Glanton is American, so I don't know who he's with. I don't think he's with any big promoter. Vidal is with Boxer, and Shev is with Matchroom. So there's no Queensberry fighters on the card as of right now. So I don't know where they fit in. I don't know if they're getting snubbed out of this one. That would be interesting because they're the ones who have the longest running relationship with His Excellency. And they're a British promoter. I'm kind of surprised that they don't have anyone on this card. A lot of Boxer fighters and a good amount of Matchroom fighters as well. So, this will be interesting. Another one that I think could be on the fight card, Adam Azim versus Dalton Smith. Smith is fighting on Saturday. Azim fights the following Saturday. Both in big fights that they'll probably win. I could really see them fighting on this undercard. I think that may be in the works because what we heard about this undercard was the rumors were Vidal against Shev and Smith against McKenna. We didn't know about CBS. We didn't know about Yard Arthur 3. We did hear rumors that Adam Azim is supposed to return on this card. I wouldn't be surprised if Smith is supposed to return as well. Only had the one fight last year. He was supposed to fight in September but got injured. So I could really see them finally doing this fight. Hopefully, Eddie got through to Ben and said, listen, make the fight. I think they're both ready for it. I think this is a perfect fight to do it in. Honestly, that could be the co-main. Just because there's 2 guys undeniably at the top of their game, really getting towards a world title in one of the best divisions in boxing. That is the 140-pound division. So really excited for that card. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully Azim Smith gets added to it. That'd be a big surprise, a lot of fun. But I don't want to give up my hopes. That could be the whole card, and I'd be happy with it. Another big announcement just made today. Jaron Ennis versus Eimantas Stanionis is official for April 12th in Atlantic City at Boardwalk Hall. IBF, WBA, and Ring Magazine world titles on the line. I forgot that they were both 1 and 2 in the ring ratings, which when the championship is vacant, it can only be on the line if it's number 1 versus number 2. These 2 fighters are Boots is number 1, Stanionis is number 2. I think that is probably the best fight in the division, just because, I think that Barrios and Norman are good, but I think that Ennis is definitely the best champion. I think Stanionis is the second best champion. You got some other good fighters in the division, but it's not a terribly stacked weight division, especially with just the champions. Like, even though Stanionis is a very good fighter, he doesn't have the same name recognition. Name-wise, Ennis and Barrios would be the biggest, but skill-wise, Ennis and Stanionis, it's a brilliant fight. These two guys are really about it. I don't know how about it Norman or Barrios are, and the fact that how much they want to unify, but this is a great fight. Should be a big card. Ennis really needed a unification. Just in the fact that he's defending this title, 2 or 3 times now it feels, against so opponents. He needs to be in with a big name. He needs to be in with a good fighter, a very good fighter. He needs to, kind of prove against the doubters now that he's, about it, because pulling out of the Virgil Ortiz fight was a little bit, like, hey, what are you doing? If you're going to stay at 147, you have to be in a unification or a big fight. I would have been fine with the Teofimo Lopez. I kind of prefer this because he's going to unify. Unifies this, and we'll move into our next subject with Teofimo Lopez in a second. But, we could be looking at a really, really good fight on the horizon for Ennis and Stanionis. This is the best fight in the division, I think. I know the winner will probably have to be ordered against Crocker Donovan, the way the IBF operates. I don't really like them getting a world title shot. I just don't think that it makes a lot of sense, if I'm honest. It's a great fight. I just don't think that either one of them is like, all right, I'm mandatory for the belt. I'm like, I don't think so. Not yet, But we'll see. That's April 12th. Really excited for that one. And if Boots wins this, the plan that His Excellency has is for him to fight Teofimo Lopez in October at welterweight, Garcia and Haney, if they both win their fights against Ramirez and Romero, them to fight in October on the same card. And then they all fight winners, and losers fight losers February in Saudi. And that's, of course, if Teo gets past his next fight, which hopefully will be a unification against Richardson Hitchens. So, and this brings me to Teofimo Lopez, who's potentially in a 3-fight deal to fight Richardson Hitchens, probably in New York, to unify IBF and WBO and Ring Magazine titles at super lightweight. I think that's a great fight. If you look at the plan here for His Excellency, I don't like planning out 3 fights in advance, but all of those fights are just like, they're all so good. Teo obviously, if he beats Hitchens, would then move up to welterweight. Even if he loses to Hitchens, he'd move up to welterweight probably. Get a fight with Ennis in, and then fight the winner or loser, depending on how his fight with Boots goes, against the winner or loser, Garcia Haney too. But very, very good fights to go down if that happens. Apparently, Teo is about to sign a 3-fight deal with His Excellency. We know that he probably just signed Canelo to one. So there's a lot of signings going around right now with His Excellency. He's really taken over the sport, I think. But I'm excited for this fight. We heard it was happening. There was a lot of rumors, but it wasn't finalized yet. And then, usually I feel like nowadays, we find out when it's finalized, before the announcement. We heard, they're going to finalize it hopefully soon. And then it just gets announced. That, I love that so much more. I just opened my phone and saw it, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. Let's go. All right, some other news we can talk about. Sebastian Fundora. Apparently he's going to fight Shordale Booker on March 29th instead of Errol Spence. To be honest, I don't even really want to talk about this. There are so many good fighters in 154, so many, and he probably chose the weakest name possible. I have nothing against Booker, but 154 is unbelievably stacked. He could have even fought like Charles Kama would have been brilliant. Sergey Boachuk would have been amazing. Unified with Murtazaliev would have been awesome. The Spence fight I would have liked. Hell, they talked about Joey Spencer. I would have been less mad about that. This, I had to look up who Chordale Booker was. He lost to Ammo Williams, years ago. And we'll talk about Ammo. He just got his fight announced, but really, this guy's getting the world title shot. I know he gets a voluntary defense, but come on, it's just stupid. Completely ducking the top talent in the division, and you just hate to see it. Unified champion. Same with Inoue, although I know Inoue, it wasn't as much him, but just in the circumstances are different, but unified champions not fighting. Other champions are the top contenders, so that sucks to see. It really does. Elijah Garcia versus Taro Gosha moved to co-main there. There were talks about doing it January 10th, talks about doing it February 15th. They were supposed to headline their own Career Royale on pay-per-view. I think it's a good fight. Garcia just had his first loss against Jaron Davis. Taro Gosha just lost to Tank Davis. Not Tank Davis. He fought on the Tank Davis undercard. He lost to Carlos Adames, challenging for the world championship. I think this is a good fight. It's a competitive, really good matchup. But I didn't think it needed to be its own main event. I didn't think it really deserved that. If it's co-main on this, that's a good card. I'm hearing it'll be in Vegas either March 22nd or 29th. So I like that. I like it being its own thing, but I really hate the Fedora Booker fight. Keith Thurman was announced to fight Brock Jarvis. This is the most random fight ever. Brock started his career at 115. He's now at 160, which is nuts. I don't know. He's an okay Australian fighter. And Thurman is a former world champion who hasn't fought in 3 years. This is just so random. It's just so random. It makes no sense at all. I don't get it. Apparently the plan is for Tim Tszyu to also return, and then them to fight in the summer on a non-pay-per-view Prime card. Both having interim fights also not on pay-per-view on Prime. I'm hopeful this is on Prime Video. I don't know if it will be, but also Michael Zarafa will be in the co-main against Basir I. He talked some smack to Tim Tszyu. It seems like Tim Tszyu is moving up, which I thought he was going to move down just because of, how he was, after, losing to Murtazalia. But Fedor, he was the way smaller guy in both those fights. Now he's going to move up with even bigger guys. It's just, I don't know. But I actually don't mind the Thurman and Tszyu fight now. They're both guys that aren't in world title shots anytime soon. I like Thurman getting a comeback fight. I like Tszyu getting a comeback fight and them fighting each other. That's just a fun fight to make. Makes way more sense now than last year when Thurman had no comeback fight and Tszyu was a world champion. So I think I would like it this summer, but I don't think that. I don't know. This is just kind of a random matchup, but it's also, you can think about, it could be close. I think Thurman should win, but it's 3 years out of the ring. I don't know. Another fight announcement, Ammo Williams versus Patrice Volney. It's a very good fight. Patrice Volney just beat Stephen Butler in a really good upset win. He's 19-1. Ammo, I believe, is around, I'm not sure how many wins he has, but he has the one loss to Hamza Shiraz. Wins this, honestly gets back into the top 10 discussion, inching his way back towards a world title shot. The Shiraz fight was a final eliminator. Shiraz, of course, now challenging Carlos Adames February 22nd. This will be on March 15th at the Career Royale. Love the Career Royale cards. Omari Jones, Olympian, just signed with Matchroom. He'll be making his pro debut on that card. I like that. I don't like that. And I'm very skeptical of the Pat Brown headlining in his professional debut. I don't know how that's going to go. I like them definitely giving the Olympians a boost, doing them like co-main, but main event may be a little bit stretching, but I'm excited for this card. Ammo and Volney is a really good fight. Zepeda, Farmer 2 is in negotiations for the interim title March 22nd March 29th in Cancun. A lot of fights going to be on March 29th, it seems. But that's a really good fight, It was a really good fight last time. It just sucks because now I feel like Zepeda lost his shot to, he's literally he was number one with every single division. Now he's the interim champion, so he's going to have to fight Shakur, so he's got to wait until Shakur's done. I honestly, last time he made a mistake by taking the Farmer fight, got injured. Then he couldn't fight February 22nd against Shakur. Don't take another interim fight, dude. Just wait. Literally against the same guy, the same thing's going to happen, and then you're not going to be ready to fight Shakur in summer, and he's going to move on to another fighter. So wait, lock in your fight, but I also understand that the Farmer fight was kind of close. He wants to, avenge it, so whatever. I'm a really big fan of Zepeda, but this is just interesting. Also, it's in Cancun, so I don't know if it's a Golden Boy show or not. We'll see. Also on March 29th, we know that we're probably going to get Mayer versus Ryan 2 in Vegas. Co-main is supposed to be Derek Cuevas challenging Brian Norman Jr. for the WBO welterweight championship. They tried to do this fight on the Keyshawn card in November. Didn't make a lot of sense then. Doesn't make a lot of sense now, but whatever. Norman wants his voluntary world championship and against a guy he'll win so that he can defend it. Sure, do it. Then unify or fight somebody better. Jonas Price undercard got announced, or at least most of it. Caroline Dubois is back, which is awesome. She had a very short fight last time out. She's back into it again. Speaking of that, also is coming off quick. Callum Simpson is going to return in the co-main event, defending his Commonwealth title on the Azim Lipinets card, which I love. I think that's a great replacement for the Riley Chamberlain coming off. Just fought January 11th. 3 weeks later, he's back in the ring. Second round knockout, so no reason to hold him out. I hate when I see fighters, have a quick knockout and then still stay out of the ring for 4, 5, 6 months. Like, why? Just get him back out there as soon as you can. And that's what they're doing, which is great. Again, Caroline Dubois, that technical draw. Fight ended after the second round, so she's back March 7th. Talked about unifying with Terry Harper. Doesn't look like that's likely. I hope that they can get that. If not, just defend the belt, then unify. Also on the card, Karis Ardingstall versus Raven Chapman. That's a brilliant fight. Raven Chapman coming off her first defeat against Sky Nicholson. Ardingstall's been out for about a year, but it's a really good fight. I wasn't expecting that at all. I don't know if Chapman is still with Queensberry, but this is a boxer show. Royal Albert Hall, all women's card. They just signed Cindy Ngamba, who's an Olympian. She'll be making her pro debut on that card. Fran Hennessy's supposed to be on that card, potentially in a world championship, they said. Or they said that it's on the card. She could get a world title shot soon, so that's crazy. Savannah Marshall potentially returning here. I doubt it's not against Claressa, because Claressa's fighting February 2nd. Hopefully after this they can fight, but get Marshall back out. I think she still has one of those titles at 168. Get her fight potentially. If they can get Shadeja Green out there and unify, that'd be awesome. I'd love that. Or a Cruz DeZern rematch, but it'll probably be a mandatory, which is okay. So that card is looking brilliant, actually. Really impressed by Boxer. And they said all women's card. Sometimes you're a little bit skeptical. Okay, how good is this going to be? It's looking like it'll be very good. Looking like we could have it like at least 3 world championships on it and some other really good matchups. Like Ardingstall Chapman is brilliant. That's 50-50. Well, maybe you can favor Ardingstall, but still a very close fight. Another undercard that got announced, a big one. We knew that Valenzuela and Russell were fighting, and we also presumed that Puello and Martin were fighting. I think the winners of those fights should definitely unify. I think it just makes a lot of sense. It's on a PBC show. They really should have been unifying here, but I'm okay with it. They're both good matchups, both very close competitive fights. Winner of this, hopefully, we get in the next year against each other. The winners of those unify. Actually, no, not next year. This year, because PBC fighters need to fight more than once a year. Also on that card, we have the Yoenis Tellez, who I'm a huge fan, a very good fighter, versus Julian Williams, who lost to Carlos Adames last year, or 2023. He challenged for the WBC interim at the time middleweight championship. They're going to be fighting for the WBA interim super welterweight championship. That is a really good fight for Tellez to, he'll probably beat Williams, but it's a big step up. Beats Williams. He's now the interim champion and mandatory to Terrence Crawford. I know Crawford probably won't stay with that belt, especially if he goes to fight Canelo. But I'm a huge fan of Tellez. I'm really surprised that he's already looking at world titles. I didn't think that was going to happen for a few more fights, not until next year. But man, if he is and he's ready for the world title jump, let's do it. That's awesome. That's a really good card they're cooking up there for the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Speaking of WBA interim super welterweight championship, the women's side of that just got announced for the Bazinian Butler undercard. Mary Spencer's defending it against Oakladis Suarez. Cool, she's defending it. Hopefully she can actually fight the champion pretty soon. Also on that card, John Arobia, Wilkins Matthews. So it should be a good card. That fight is going to be brilliant. That's really a good matchup with Bazinian and Butler. But Bazinian is definitely a favorite now, but I always thought, man, they've got so much good talent at 168 pounds. The Tiger does. Why don't they match him up? And it seems like they're going to. These are the two less great fighters out of that bunch. Hopefully after this they can get Mbili Iglesias to fight potentially, but they're both looking at world championships in different respects. So, yeah, really excited to see what unfolds over at Eye of the Tiger. That's a really good card with Bazinian and Butler. Really good fight. KSI is supposed to fight twice, or 3 times this year, I think. But his second fight apparently is in the U.S., potentially Las Vegas. I doubt it'll be Vegas. There's no way that they're going to allow that commission will have misfits there. Maybe somewhere else, but that'd be really cool for them to do a U.S. fight. You know, he's only fought in the U.S. once against Logan Paul in the rematch. He won that. Be good at building his star power, especially for a potential Jake Paul fight, because as big as KSI is in the UK, and as much as they don't want to admit it, he's not a huge name over here. You know, he's probably a bigger name now because of the thick of it meme, but I mean, he's really not. What he's known for in the U.S. is fighting Logan Paul and the thick of it. Like that's most of what he's known for. He's nowhere near as huge as he is in the UK. You know, like worldwide, Jake Paul is definitely the A side in that fight, even though they think that it's the other way around. But I love the idea of him fighting in the U.S. Hopefully that means he's in with a good U.S. name, because KSI probably can't sell too well in the U.S. Get him in there with a big name UFC fighter, maybe? That would be brilliant. And they said it's one that he's going to be an underdog in. So hopefully that's what that means. That'd be sick. Alex Pereira is an underdog against Magomed Ankalaev. That scares me. I love Pereira. Really surprised by that, actually, just because I feel like Pereira is so powerful, and he's just such a menace and so highly ranked with the UFC, like pound for pound, that you know, kind of surprised at I'm not surprised. A lot of people would maybe think that Ankalaev could win because of his wrestling, but surprised that the actual odds makers have it that he'll win. He's very slight favorite, very slight, but still favorite nonetheless. So that's a little bit surprising. And the last thing is, and this isn't much of a story, but Tank Davis sending a good luck message to Naoya Inoue before his fight tomorrow. Tank is just, you know, playing some mind games, but I think it's funny. I don't think that him and Inoue will ever fight. They're just too much of a difference. I know people want that to happen, but just stop demanding it. Yeah, I just thought that was funny. That's all we'll say for this episode. It's a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about on the show. Any comments, concerns, whatever. You know, if you want to be a co-host, let me know, because it's just me, and I don't care what your qualifications are. If you're interested, let me know. We can just chop it up talking about boxing and MMA. Thank you for listening. You know, big card this weekend. No UFC. You got Bellator PFL instead, but it's a good card. You got BKFC Nocomania. You got Naoya Inoue. You've got Diego Pacheco, Dalton Smith, Pro Box, Golden Boy, Fight Night. You know, it's like a lot of good cards this weekend. Starts all in a couple hours with Eric Priest, Tyler Howard on DAZN and YouTube, 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a good weekend. I'll report back probably on Sunday or Monday with the breaking down the weekend's events. But thank you for listening, and goodbye.